Hello and welcome. I'm Lauren Green, the Program Director for the Transitional Year Residency, and I appreciate you taking time out of a busy interview season to learn more about our program and interview with us. In order to help the interview day go as smoothly as possible, I've put together this video for you to view ahead of time. It will provide you an overview of the program and give you a feel for what it would be like to be a resident here. There will be additional opportunity the day of the interview to briefly review some of the material and ask questions. Before I begin talking about the Transitional Year Residency here at Geisinger, I wanted to give you a brief history lesson. Pictured here on the right is Abigail A. Geisinger. In the early 1900s, she set the tone for the creation of Geisinger Hospital when she said, "Make my hospital right, make it the best." Let me back up a little bit here. George F. Geisinger was Abigail's husband and a successful businessman in the late 19th century during a time when Danville and the surrounding area were the center of the iron industry. Through his business ventures and investments, he became quite wealthy. When he passed in 1883, his wealth was left to his wife Abigail, who became known as a very generous woman, giving to her church and helping to fund the local YMCA. Ultimately, however, she decided to use a sizable portion of that wealth to start a hospital in the town where she was born and raised to memorialize her husband. Despite being an octogenarian, Mrs. Geisinger was very involved in the creation of the hospital, personally selecting Harold Foss, who prior to coming to Geisinger had experience in the Mayo system, to be the chief surgeon and superintendent of the hospital. Built on a hill overlooking a 13-acre campus, Geisinger was designed to inspire awe and communicate strength and permanence to the community it was created to serve. When the hospital first opened its doors in September of 1915, the vision of Abigail Geisinger was well known. She desired for the hospital to be more than a pedestrian institution of medical care for her community and provided the resources to make my hospital right, make it the best. Since that time, Geisinger has grown significantly. Not only has the original hospital in Danville expanded, but the system has joined forces with several hospitals in the community, including Geisinger Bloomsburg Hospital, to provide resources, training, and expertise that strengthen the care provided to patients throughout the region. Now, Geisinger Health System represents a system of 12 hospitals and over 30,000 employees. It is difficult to boil down the mission of a health system into one or two short slides, but in essence, the desire of leadership within the hospital and beyond is for us to be leaders in the medical community, creating a model that can be adopted by other hospitals across the country. There's constant work being done to be forward-focused pioneers in the field, with an emphasis on patient-centered care that is highly reliable and evidence-based, while acknowledging that the best care delivery relies on a team-based approach, including doctors, nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, nutritionists, pharmacists, social workers, and so many others. You've probably heard of the Triple Aim, a way of looking at care delivery that was first discussed by the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, IHI, in the early 2000s. On a larger level, the Triple Aim is a framework that describes an approach to optimizing health system performance and thus care we are delivering to our patients. The three main components of the Triple Aim are 1. Patient experience, 2. Population health, and 3. Reducing costs, or providing high-value care. It is true that all three of these things are important, both to caring for the patient in front of us, as well as taking a broader perspective and finding ways to adapt our healthcare delivery models to meet the needs of our individual community and the broader healthcare landscape. There are many ways Geisinger strives to exemplify this. One example is the MyCode project. MyCode is a large research project that to date has enrolled over 200,000 patients with the aim of better understanding the interplay between genetics and the way disease presents, as well as how genetics may play a role in identifying the best treatments. Ideally, the hope is that the research would help Geisinger to keep our patients healthy instead of treating them when they are sick. It's part of a larger aim to practice precision medicine, the idea of tailoring medical treatments to the individual characteristics of each patient instead of assuming a one-size-fits-all approach. Another example of Geisinger's innovative approach to healthcare delivery is the growing Geisinger Home Network. It goes back to the idea of bringing healthcare provider to the patient instead of always making the patient come to the doctor. But back to the AAA. Although there is a lot to learn from looking at problems through this framework, there's also recognition that there's an important piece missing from the AAA, which is why here at Geisinger we prefer to discuss the quadruple aim, which includes the three components I already laid out from the triple aim, but adds on one more: care team well-being. We know that as doctors, we can't take care of patients the way we all envisioned when we took on this calling if we aren't taking care of ourselves and each other. And at the same time, we recognize that although our identity is shaped, at least in part, by our roles on the healthcare team, there's more to each of us as individuals than that. Cultivating and maintaining wellness, not just conceptually, but practically, is important to me as a program director and to our residency program. Now that you know a little bit more about Geisinger, the history and mission behind the health system, let me introduce you to Geisinger Bloomsburg Hospital. Where exactly is Geisinger Bloomsburg Hospital, you might ask? Well, one of the benefits to it is, in fact, its close proximity to Danville and the main Geisinger campus. Although regrettably it's not possible for you to be here in person today to see for yourself, Bloomsburg and Danville are two small towns separated by about 10 miles. Bloomsburg itself is a college town, home to Bloomsburg University, which is located directly across the street from the hospital, and a population of about 14,000 individuals. Danville, a smaller town of roughly 5,000, seems in many ways the least likely place to have a huge referral hospital, but that's exactly what it is. Bloomsburg can best be described as a cute, small town located in the heart of beautiful northeastern PA. I will touch on a few of the highlights later on in the presentation, but I'd encourage those of you who are less familiar with the area to check out the Transitional Year Residency website, where you can see a short 3-minute video that goes over a lot of what the region has to offer. But back to the hospital. As you can see from the map, both Geisinger Medical Center in Danville and Geisinger Bloomsburg Hospital in Bloomsburg are no more than 20 minutes apart. And to be honest, you can pretty consistently get back and forth between the two hospitals in closer to 15 minutes. One of the nice perks of the area is that there's essentially no traffic, and the parking at Bloomsburg Hospital can absolutely not be beat. You can literally go from pulling into the parking lot to walking in the door of the hospital in just a few minutes. Bloomsburg Hospital offers benefits of a small community hospital with many of the resources that come from proximity to and association with a major medical center like Geisinger Medical Center in Danville. At most programs, you have to choose between getting experienced clinical teaching and getting individualized attention, but that's not the case here. Here at Bloomsburg Hospital, you get a robust exposure to bread and butter medicine and the like, as well as teaching from experienced clinical faculty, many of whom also spend time in Danville and have experience teaching residents there. In addition, in large part because the Transitional Year Residency is the main residency presence in Bloomsburg, although other residencies will rotate through from time to time, you will never feel like an outsider on your rotations. While at other transitional year or prelim programs, you might feel like you're getting pushed to the side in favor of the categorical residents who are going to be there for many years. That's not the case here. You will truly be the most consistent residency presence in the hospital, and you will really get to know a lot of the people, faculty, and otherwise who work here over the course of the year. In addition, one thing that really sets our program apart is the one-on-one teaching you will get from these experienced teachers that really allows you to get an individualized attention and a rich learning experience. Here at the hospital, we have our Transitional Year Residency office. Included in the office are personal lockers for belongings, computer space for completing work or studying, and a sleeping space in a separate room if you need to take a snooze. It's also closely located to my office for questions, concerns, or just to come by and chat. We're also exploring ways to make the space even more cozy and homey in the months to come. So now that you know a little bit about Bloomsburg Hospital, let's talk about the Transitional Year program itself. Since you guys are applying to our Transitional Year Residency, you are probably at least somewhat familiar with what a Transitional Year program has to offer. As you know, several programs, including dermatology, ophthalmology, radiology, and some anesthesia and PM&R programs, require residents to have a year of residency experience prior to starting PGY2 year in their chosen field. This often takes the form of either a transitional year or a preliminary year. Unlike a preliminary year, which is typically done in one area, generally either internal medicine, surgery, or pediatrics, a transitional year includes experiences in a wide variety of different fields. Transitional year residencies are designed to allow for broad-based training while at the same time maximizing flexibility to meet personal and professional interests. I've included here an example of what your schedule as a transitional year resident might look like. The schedule is composed of 13 4-week blocks, which I may refer to as months at various points in this presentation. The core foundation includes 3 months of inpatient medicine, 2 months of emergency medicine, a month of general surgery, as well as a month of ambulatory medicine, which takes place at different clinics throughout the area. One unique aspect of our schedule that residents have given us truly excellent feedback on is our inpatient psychiatry rotation. Additionally, if there are other requirements that your advanced residency position has that don't fit in well with this schedule, we'd be happy to talk things over and make adjustments if needed to make things work. There are also 4 elective rotations over the course of the year. While the core rotations for the most part take place at Bloomsburg Hospital, you can choose to spend some or all of your elective time doing rotations on some of the subspecialty services at the larger Geisinger hospitals like Geisinger Medical Center in Danville or Geisinger Wyoming Valley in Scranton. Choosing to do at least some of your elective time outside of Bloomsburg, while not required, is encouraged as it will give you an exposure to a somewhat different patient population and expand the elective options you have to choose from immensely. The goal of this experience is to really allow you to customize your schedule for the year to fit interests and needs you might have, and to best prepare you for the rest of your residency training and your career ahead. One scheduling perk to highlight is the lack of an overnight call. While you may be scheduled for evening hours at times on emergency medicine and inpatient medicine, there's never any true overnight call or night float. Residents describe the schedule and workload as being quite reasonable, with a sufficient mix of challenge to promote growth, as well as time off to allow for wellness and life outside of the hospital. In addition to clinical experiences, there will also be scheduled didactics that mirror what the categorical residents you're rotating with will be learning. You'll get protected time to attend these didactics, during which time you'll be excused from your clinical responsibilities. There's also a transitional year specific journal club once a month, which ends up being a lot of fun since residents are spread out throughout a variety of different rotations. Maybe someone's on surgery, someone's on emergency medicine, a few people are on inpatient medicine, and so on and so forth. And during this time, once a month, we all come together and learn alongside of each other. The hope is over the course of the year that we can learn from each other how to best read the literature, apply it, so we can feel confident that we are practicing evidence-based medicine and providing high-value care to our patients. We also have a unique longitudinal curriculum designed specifically for the transitional year residents that includes full days spaced out over the course of the year where all transitional year residents are excused from clinical responsibilities, and we come together to learn about various topics related to the practice of medicine and our role as doctors in the community. This takes place through guest speakers, group discussions, informal competitions, simulation center activities, and more. Topics may include, but are certainly not limited to, public health, the business side of medicine, patient safety, clinical reasoning, ethics, and more. The belief is that by addressing these issues and engaging in open dialogue, we can continue to work on becoming more well-rounded physicians. We also try to include a wellness component to de-stress and get to know each other better outside of the hospital. Now that you know a little bit more about our transitional year residency, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a few housekeeping points. First off, all of Geisinger, not just our residency or residencies as a whole, but all of Geisinger have a strict no nicotine policy. In fact, as part of the pre-employment screening process, new Geisinger employees are screened for drugs, including tobacco, and it's expected that as an employee of Geisinger, including residents, that you'll abstain from all drugs, including tobacco. There's also a bring your own device policy. Geisinger has made the decision to phase out pagers, and instead we communicate with each other within the hospital using Tiger Text, which is a secure text messaging platform. So you download the app on your phone and you can text back and forth and have two-way communication between other doctors on the care team, nurses, social workers, pretty much anyone who's helping to take care of the patient with you. And if you think about it, this makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you've had the experience of carrying around a pager during medical school, but you might get a page with a number. You have no idea from the number necessarily who's calling you or whether it's urgent, how time sensitive the matter is. So you have to stop what you're doing, go find a phone, call the person back. They might not be standing right by the phone anymore, so then you have to wait on hold for them to come find them back. And maybe it was something simple that could have been communicated by another means. And so what the Tiger Text platform allows for is for messages to be sent back and forth, so the nurse can ask you a question through the app, or maybe provide you some information, some updates on how the patient is doing. You can respond back if you need additional information, or if you have information you want to communicate to them. And if it's something time sensitive that requires more of a conversation, or for you to do something immediately, you can read the message and then know that you need to stop what you're doing and address it now. Or perhaps from the nature of the message, you're able to identify that it's less time sensitive and you can continue what you're doing, whether it's talking with a patient or a family, and then address the issue that you were sent a message about when you're done. So it allows for much more efficient communication, and it certainly doesn't prohibit you from also having those more in-depth face-to-face or phone conversations if there's an issue that would work better and be resolved better that way. But it definitely allows for a lot of pluses when you're trying to get in touch with different members of the care team quickly and easily. As a result of this switch, residents are expected to come with a phone that's capable of operating Tiger Text. Fortunately, pretty much any phone that I'm aware of made within the last several years can easily run Tiger Text. So if you have one of those old flip phones made who knows when, maybe time for an upgrade. But other than that, you should be good. As far as I know, all of the more newer phones can run Tiger Text just fine. So not sure how many of you guys are Avengers fans, but if you can see here from the slide, don't be like Nick Fury with his pager. Get your phone, get your Tiger Text. And now, a word on benefits. You should have received some more detailed information about benefits, but I'd like to highlight a few things for you here. For starters, you can expect a competitive salary, currently $58,000 for a PGY1. This competitive salary is made even better by a low cost of living here in Bloomsburg. So that $58,000 will take you a lot further than $58,000 would take you if you were doing your residency elsewhere, say in one of the nearby larger cities. When you start residency, you also get a $750 reimbursement for moving expenses. And over the course of the year, you get 15 working days off. This is in addition to holidays and the like. And then if at the end of the year you're moving on to your advanced residency training at another hospital, you can have 5 additional days off for moving and to get settled in preparation for that transition. If you're staying on to do your advanced training at Geisinger, you don't lose those days. You get to take them at the end of your advanced training. And of course, if you were, for whatever reason, to want a little bit of time off at the end of the year before you start your advanced training, you could take vacation time then as well. You get, as another benefit, your Step 3 or Level 3 exam paid for one time, and an additional $750 of CME money to use over the course of the year. And of course, you'll receive health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, and disability insurance as well. Although not benefits in the strictest sense of the word, there are a few other perks that I'd like to mention briefly. The first is our EMR system, Epic. Now, I'm not sure what EMR systems you guys may have used in the past. Having used a couple different EMR systems myself, I think that Epic is the one that I've had the best experience with. But beyond that, our clinical informatics department is very involved in trying to find ways to make Epic more user-friendly and improve the workflow for clinicians. This probably stems from the fact that The leaders in the clinical informatics department are clinicians themselves, and they're, on top of that, really responsive to feedback and ideas that regular non-IT minded doctors like myself might have. As one example of this, a couple years back I was taking care of a patient and was reviewing the order set for hyperkalemia that we had with an epic at that time, and recognized that it wasn't really in line with the best, most updated evidence regarding how we should care for patients with hyperkalemia. And so I reached out to folks in clinical informatics, presented my rationale and some of the evidence behind my concerns that we needed to change the order set so that we were appropriately caring for patients. And they reached out to the original creator of the order set, who ultimately ended up agreeing that the changes were appropriate. And now we have a new order set that's in line with the best, most evidence-based treatment practices. The best part is you don't need to be a program director to do this. If you have an idea of how we can improve things to better care for patients and speak up, people are eager to engage in dialogue. We also have an extensive library system. So although the physical library itself is located in Danville, adjacent to the hospital there is electronic access that you can get to remotely from around 3,000 full-text journal subscriptions and 3,000 electronic books. The health science librarians are also available to help in person or remotely to help with researching the literature, identifying relevant search terms, refining search questions, developing an appropriate search strategy if you have a clinical question that you're wrestling with. And if you find articles either with the help of the health science librarians or through your own searches that are not from one of the 3,000 full-text journals that we subscribe to, you can discuss with the librarians, reach out to them, fill out a quick request online, and they can often get you that article the same day, and even sometimes within a couple hours, through a process known as interlibrary loan. So really, it's a great access to a lot of the literature that's out there, in addition to up-to-date and all of the usual sources, which you can also have access to on your phone as well. Now, I mentioned it before, but one of the other benefits is that parking here at Bloomsburg is close to the hospital and free. Now, when I say close to the hospital, I mean picture yourself stopping at the grocery store to pick up some food. That's how close your parking spot will be as a resident to the main entrance of the hospital in Bloomsburg, which is great when there's inclement weather or you're just running late, or even on an ordinary day. Finally, there is the availability of convenient and affordable housing. This goes along with the idea of the low cost of living that I mentioned before. About half of our residents between last year and this year lived in Bloomsburg, with most of the other half living in Danville. Here in Bloomsburg, there's a state-of-the-art apartment complex pictured here on the slide that is a short drive from the hospital with modern amenities and an on-site fitness center. Either way, whether you live in Bloomsburg, Danville, or elsewhere, you'll find the commute quick and painless. One important note, especially for folks who like to plan ahead, orientation for the upcoming year starts June 17th and runs through the end of the month. It includes a mix of general Geisinger overview information as well as specific transitional year program sessions. Since it's mandatory, it would probably be best to avoid planning any weddings or major life events during that time. There's also plenty of downtime during the 2 weeks to get unpacked and settled in, as well as beginning to get to know your co-residents. Finally, as we begin to wrap things up here with this presentation, as I've hopefully made clear on previous slides, although your clinical learning and professional growth as a PGY1 are clearly important to me as your program director, so too is the opportunity for you to have a life outside of work. After all, the time you spend outside of work is essential to a healthy balance. Although the town of Bloomsburg may be small, with just over 14,000 people, there's much to do in the surrounding area. For the outdoorsy folks, there are numerous state parks, including Ricketts Glen, with the beautiful picturesque waterfalls that you can see here on the slide, as well as Lake Tobias Park on the bottom left, where you can get up close and personal with the animals. On the top right, you can see pictured the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. I didn't even know there was such thing as the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon until I moved here, but it's a short drive away, nice weekend trip, really picturesque. I wish I could take credit for that picture, but unfortunately it came from Google. And then you can do activities like boating on the Susquehanna, as you can see in the bottom right. Not pictured here, but also a short drive away, are the Poconos, the Finger Lakes, and many other local parks and hiking spots, too numerous to list. For the adventurous type, there is Knoebels, the largest free entry amusement park in the U.S., right in our own backyard. And if you're interested in driving a little further, the even bigger Dorney Park, which is in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and Hershey Park, with the adjacent Chocolate World and Hershey Spa. There's also numerous local sporting events, from the Little League World Series, which takes place in Williamsport every year. And there's close by Division I college football. Not pictured here, there is minor league baseball and minor league hockey, which I was astounded at how affordable those games are to attend. Literally, you can spend less than $20 and sit right up against the glass, if that's your kind of thing, at the hockey game. For the more artsy type, there's also local theater productions, including those put on by Bloomsburg University and Bucknell University. And big artists also come to play in the area at the Mohegan Sun Arena. And on top of all of this, there's numerous local eateries, and of course, the infamous Bloomsburg Fair, one of the largest fairs on the East Coast. People in the area really get into it. The town of Bloomsburg, like the schools, shut down for the week, and everyone is just at the fair. There's all the things that you would normally expect at a fair. Games, rides, there are animal exhibits, there's musical performers. Darcy Lynn was there a few years ago. And of course, ridiculously unhealthy food that we probably shouldn't be eating, but do anyway because it's delicious. And if all that weren't enough, although it may seem hard to believe, we're actually only a short drive away from several large East Coast cities. You can get to Philly and New York City in about 2.5 hours. DC and Baltimore are roughly 3 hours away. Pittsburgh, 3.5. And you can even get to Niagara Falls in give or take 4 hours. All distances that are great for a weekend getaway, using some of that money perhaps that you've saved from the low cost of living here to explore someplace new. Really, despite being in a small town, we're really very accessible to several bigger destinations. Of course, I couldn't do this presentation without including a picture of a few of our fabulous residents. Pictured here is a photo from our first class of Transitional Year Residents in 2019. As a relatively new program here at Geisinger, we have benefited greatly from being a part of the larger Geisinger educational system, being able to collaborate with and learn from, share resources with many other Geisinger residencies that have been around for decades. We have also benefited greatly from the residents that have come through the program thus far. Their invaluable insight and suggestions have been instrumental in helping to shape the program and make it what it is today. And we continue to pride ourselves on being very interested in hearing from our residents and open to change. My goal for our Transitional Year Residency is to create a welcoming environment for that transition from medical student to resident, to allow for rich clinical learning while also creating a supportive community made up of passionate residents and faculty of a diverse range of clinical interests that can also enjoy life outside of the hospital. Ultimately, if you choose to do your advanced training at Geisinger and Danville, doing your transitional year with us helps allow you to get to know the area a year early and avoid the hassle of relocating twice. But if you choose to do your advanced training elsewhere, we'd also encourage you to consider us for your PGY1 year. I believe you'll be glad you did. I look forward to meeting you guys soon. Until then, take care and bye-bye!